best combo tricks in Roblox Bedwars that you need to start using. Also, subscribe. Now, for the first combo trick that you guys need to start using is called tracking. Now, if you guys don't know how Bedwars combat works, it solely relies on something called tracking. Now, it obviously does depend on what weapon you guys are using. For example, if you are using the dagger or the gauntlets, those weapons are going to require a bit more tracking. But most importantly, if you are using something like the sword, then you are definitely going to need to get really good at tracking. If you don't know what tracking is, basically it's when your cursor is consistently over the enemy target. This is really common in a lot of FPS games and it is crucial to winning PvP fights and catching insane combos in Bedwars. You see a ton of pro players, top nightmare players, always using this in their PvP fights, and it looks absolutely beautiful when they catch an insane combo on their enemies. But that is just one out of the 10 different tricks that I'm going to be showing in today's video. And as the video goes on, I'm going to be showcasing more crucial tips that you need to use in your Bedwars games. So make sure you watch right until the end. Now, for the next combo trick, you guys should definitely use this in conjunction with the last one. And that is whilst tracking, your opponents also sway from side to side. Now, whilst fighting your enemies on a very perfectly even flat plane, try and juke them up a little bit. Swing from side to side and maybe catch a few jumps just to make their tracking go off track a little bit. The more unpredictable you are with your sways and your jumps, the least likely your enemy is going to hit you. And since you are putting in your own inputs, you can also adjust your mouse and make sure you're moving with your swaying as well. This just makes it a lot more difficult for your opponents to hit you, and it makes it a lot easier to catch a sleek combo on your enemy. I personally use this one a lot as I like to be as unpredictable as possible. It just makes me a lot more fearsome opponent, especially when coming up against better players. Anyways, for the next combo trick, this one is pretty obvious, but make sure you guys are using an extra weapon like a bow or a crossbow to catch some extra damage off. Especially if your enemy has extra gear, it is really important that you are getting the most damage in as possible. There is no point having really good tracking and really good combos if you aren't dealing the most damage. If you're fighting a stacked area and you only have a wooden sword, you're going to want to find some other ways to deal some damage, and the best way to do this is through a bow or a crossbow. Firstly, before going into PvP fights, you need to make sure that you get at least one bow shot off on your opponent. This will guarantee that your opponent has less health than you do. It is also really important to sometimes disengage from fights, stand back and just pop some bow shot. Not only does this help you get your enemy lower, but it also gives you the opportunity to disengage and regenerate health. Especially if you're using the lifesteal enchant, you can get a lot more health back whilst your enemy is only slowly losing more health. Anyways, another really important combo tip is making sure that you are using the right kit. Now, if you guys didn't already know this, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. I'm actually giving my subscribers who are early to my videos a free kit. So if you want any of the kits that I'm about to mention, make sure you comment your username, subscribe, and like this video. Kits are really important to use. Me personally, I like using the Electro kit because not only can I dash in front or away from my opponents, but there are some other really good kits that you can use to do a similar sort of thing. Another kit that is really good for it is the Uzi kit. Since the Uzi kit can dash, you can run away and dash into opponents, which will definitely catch them off guard. Anyways, for the next combo tip, honestly guys, I'm not sure why I don't see more people using this, but please, if you want to catch a really good combo, use the Gloop item. The Gloops and the fireballs are probably one of the best ways for newer, more beginner players to catch combos on their enemies, especially the Gloop items. What the Gloop items do is they slow your opponents down and they disable their abilities. The Gloop is a really important item because it actually slows the enemy down, making it a lot easier for you to catch combos on them because your enemy is going to be practically standing still. If you can't hit a combo on someone who is standing still, then that is honestly a skill issue. But if you are honestly having trouble with hitting people that are standing still, I would recommend going into customs and 1v1ing a friend for a bit. You can also use the fireballs to do passive damage because they do give the fire enchant, and they also do a really decent base damage. The reason why I like to use the gloops instead though is because they are a lot cheaper and they do slow the enemy down. Anyways, for the next combo trick, use blocks. Now this may sound pretty obvious guys, but I'm actually talking about using blocks to block your own enemy's combos. That's a little bit of a tongue twister, but basically you can actually just place down blocks in front of your opponents to completely block their eyesight. This will stop them from catching in a combo on you, and then you have the upper hand here. You can actually anticipate their moves a lot better and actually hit a really sweet combo on them. I've done this so many times to catch combos on my enemies. Later in the video, I'll also show you some other tips with blocks that you can do to catch combos on your enemies, so stay tuned. This is a really important next trick for catching combos, and that is knowing what your ping is. Ping is basically latency. It is what is going to determine if your hits actually register the enemy. Ping is probably the most important variable on this list that you need to account for. Now, ping can differ between a lot of things, but 9 times out of 10, it is depending on what server you are connected to. For example, I get really high ping when I connect to United States servers. So if I'm in an American server, I'm playing at a massive disadvantage. But it is always good to know what your ping is because then you can account for it. If you have really high ping, try and avoid ability-based weapons like the hammer and the scythe. And try go for something a little bit more ping-friendly like the dagger or the sword. Although keep in mind that the dagger's dash ability will definitely be delayed, so you need to make sure that you are timing your hits correctly. If you also have really high ping, it is going to be really difficult for you to actually catch up and hit your opponents, so using the hammer is going to be very painful because of its really slow attack speed. Anyways, for the next combo trick, guys, make sure you guys are using telepulse to catch combos on your enemies. If you're in an evenly played fight and you just want to catch a quick combo on your enemy without having really to do some extra work, throw a telepulse beside them or at their feet. Basically, what this will do is it'll reposition your character to be beside them. So they'll be swinging at literally nothing while you can turn around and hit them and get a cheeky combo on them. This is probably one of the more expensive ways to catch a combo on your enemy, but it is much more effective and it is also much more safer. You can guarantee to get a combo on your enemy purely because you are literally standing beside them. It gives you plenty of time to react and hit more hits on your enemies, and it also leaves your enemies completely stumbled. This is also really good for people that like to run away a lot, so if you have someone who's running away from you, make sure you're stacked up on telepulse. For the next combo trick, make sure you guys use the Scythe or the Uzi kit to get an extra hit off your opponents. This is a really cheap and easy way to get a combo on your enemies, and a lot of people tend to use this method. You might not even realize that you're doing this method 99% of the time, but the Uzi dash and the Scythe ability can actually hit people through walls, which is why I really like using the Scythe sometimes, even though it got majorly nerfed. You can use the ability to get a sneaky hit through a wall, and if you're behind a wall or through blocks, you can actually do this multiple times to get multiple hits on your enemy. This is definitely a lot more viable for early game, as your opponents are not going to be able to do anything about it. And you're pretty much guaranteed to win the fight since your enemy will be on much lower health. Anyways, for the next one, guys, make sure that you are building up before tagging your enemies. Now, I did mention that I was going to show you guys a few different things with the blocks, and as promised, this is one of them. Make sure you guys are building up really high with your blocks, and if you guys are using the Electro kit, you can double down on this, and if your opponent is also building up to get high ground, you could actually dash into them with your Electro dashes and the dagger to not only knock them off of their own tower and take massive full damage, but you can also safely go back down without taking any full damage by using your Electro dashes. This is by far one of the most effective ways that I've been able to get combos and kill people, because I'm always going to have more health than my enemies if they're just too busy building up taking a lot of full damage.